You want to know the truth about why ignoring someone who avoids closeness makes them obsessed. It's not about punishing them, it's about finding your own peace. You know what's truly interesting about people and their connections? Most folks think that showing love means running after someone. We pursue them, we send the first text, we keep trying to explain our feelings over and over, hoping that if we just say it the right way, they'll finally understand. But when it comes to a person who tends to avoid closeness, chasing them doesn't bring you nearer. It pushes them away. For the person who avoids closeness, love has always felt like too much, like something that takes their breath away. So, the very actions you think show how much you care are actually setting off their deepest fear, losing themselves in someone else. When you stop pursuing them, a big change starts to happen. You change the whole feeling of the situation. You stop acting from a place of worry and start standing with quiet self-respect. And that silence, your quietness, becomes the most powerful message you could send. You're no longer begging, please notice me. You're saying, I notice myself. That simple change shifts everything between you. People who avoid closeness aren't cold or heartless. They can love. They just learned a different way to handle emotional closeness to survive. When they were young, many of them felt that love was uncertain or came with conditions, something they had to earn, something that had strings attached. Maybe they had to act a certain way to get affection. Or perhaps the love they got was too much, or came and went. So they learned to step back when someone got too close, not because they don't care, but because intimacy feels like losing control to them. Now think about what happens when you stop chasing someone like that. You take away the emotional pressure that makes them defensive. Suddenly, they're not fighting to keep their space or protect their independence. They're not bracing themselves for emotional demands. They finally get a chance to breathe, and in that space, something new appears, self-awareness. Your quietness becomes like a mirror for them. It gives them room to feel, to think, to realize what is missing. Because for the first time, your connection doesn't feel like a heavy duty. It feels like a choice. And that is powerful because people who avoid closeness want one thing more than anything else: to feel emotionally safe. They want to know they can be close to someone without disappearing into them. When you stop chasing, you're not leaving them behind. You're showing them what real safety feels like. You're showing them that love doesn't need to chase to be real. It can exist calmly, steadily, confidently, without worry or desperation. Psychologically, what goes on inside them is fascinating. The nervous system of someone who avoids closeness is wired to see space as something interesting, not as pressure. When you step back, you stop causing their stress reaction. Instead of seeing you as someone trying to manage or trap them, they start to see you as a source of calm. That peace attracts them. The quietness becomes like a magnet. It's one of the great surprising truths of human connection. When you stop needing someone, they start to feel safe enough to want you. And that's when they begin to notice all the little things: the calm energy you have, the lack of drama, the quiet strength in how you walk away without anger. That stability becomes something they can't forget because deep down, people who avoid closeness don't trust emotional mess. They trust things that are steady. And your quietness, it is steady, it is clear. It shows your boundaries without you having to say them. And in that truth, you see something important. Your worth was never tied to how hard you tried to be loved. It was always in how deeply you were able to love yourself. And here's the strange twist. The moment you let go, the person who avoids closeness starts to feel your absence. Not because you punished them, but because your energy changed. You stopped trying to control how they saw you. You stopped trying to manage the situation. And that lack of control, that peace, is what finally gets their attention. They begin to feel the space where your energy used to be. And they realize that your love was never the issue. Their fear was. That is the turning point. Quietness doesn't just stop the chase. It stops the false idea that love must be earned. It teaches both of you what real love feels like. Freedom without fear, closeness without control, space without separation. So, if you've stopped chasing someone who avoids closeness and you're wondering what to do next, the answer is simple. Stay calm. Let your quietness speak for you. Let your peaceful energy show them that love doesn't have to fight to exist. Because sometimes the most powerful I love you isn't spoken. It's felt in the calm. One of the hardest truths in relationships, especially with people who avoid closeness, is that your love, no matter how real, can sometimes feel like pressure to them. You can be kind, patient, and real, yet if you're always trying to fix the distance, they don't feel cared for. They feel trapped. Here's why. For someone who avoids closeness, love that demands emotional show feels unsafe. It reminds them of every time being open led to hurt or disappointment in the past. That's why the most healing message you can give them isn't, "I love you, please open up." It's, "I see you and I'm not here to change you." Those words instantly lower their defenses because they carry something they've rarely experienced: acceptance without a hidden reason. You're saying, "I understand your struggle and I'm not trying to fix it." That's a completely different kind of love. It connects on a level beyond just feelings. It touches their nervous system. Think about how someone who avoids closeness experiences closeness. Their body literally treats emotional intimacy like a danger. It's not that they don't want love. They do, but their mind and body have learned to connect love with losing safety. So when you try to change them or constantly show your love, you are unknowingly making their fear stronger. They start to feel like they are being pulled into something they can't manage, and that's when they pull away. Not because they've stopped caring, but because they are trying to get their breath back. But something beautiful happens the moment you stop trying to fix them. You give them permission to be who they are. You say, "You don't have to act a certain way to make me feel comfortable." And that's where a real connection begins. Not when someone changes to be loved, but when they feel safe enough to be themselves. Strangely, that's what starts to change them. Acceptance opens doors that pressure shuts tight. That's the secret most people miss. People who avoid closeness don't run from love itself. They run from emotional pressure pretending to be love. They want to know that even when they are not perfect, they are still respected. So when your energy shifts from trying to break down their walls to just being present, they start to relax. You become the one person who doesn't make them feel wrong for needing space. That doesn't mean you accept being ignored. It means you stop begging to be seen. You see yourself instead. You act with understanding instead of panic. You talk less and listen more. You stop asking what's wrong with you and start saying, "I understand this is hard for you." That is not weakness. It is strength. Because it takes real courage to love someone from a place of awareness instead of control. It's the difference between love that claims ownership and love that understands. Ownership says, "I'll love you when you meet my needs." Understanding says, "I'll love you while you learn to meet your own needs." That is a higher love, a thoughtful love, the only kind that can truly reach a heart that avoids closeness. And here is the lovely part. When you stop trying to fix them, they start to see you differently. You become safe. You become the calm they never knew they needed, and that peace draws them closer. Not because you begged, but because you allowed. You stopped chasing love and started becoming it. You let your calmness speak louder than your words. Remember this truth. No one heals through pressure. People heal through being accepted. When someone feels accepted as they are, their body relaxes. Their mind calms down. They begin to link closeness with peace instead of fear. And that's when the real healing begins. Not because you fixed them, but because your acceptance showed them they were never broken. That's the deeper truth about love. We are taught that loving someone means changing them or helping them get better. But mature love isn't about reshaping someone to fit our comfort. It's about standing beside them long enough for them to grow naturally. You teach through your actions. You show them that calm love exists. You become the steady energy they didn't believe in. Sometimes that means saying less and doing less. It means keeping your peace even when they pull away. Because every time you react to their pulling away with fear, you confirm their worry. But every time you respond with calm self-respect, you teach them safety. So when you say, "I see you and I'm not trying to change you," you're not giving up. You're growing up. You're choosing connection over control. You're saying, I love you enough to let you be yourself, even when it makes things hard. And that kind of love, that's strength, not giving in, because here's the truth. You can't heal someone who doesn't feel safe, but you can help them feel safe enough to heal themselves. It all starts with your energy, your boundaries, your understanding that love isn't about saving, it's about respecting. So the next time you feel like chasing, explaining, or fixing, stop, breathe. Remember that acceptance isn't weakness, it's one of the most powerful forms of love there is. If you can keep that kind of space for long enough, one day the person who avoided closeness will look back and realize you were never a threat. You were home. There comes a special moment that changes everything when you love someone who avoids closeness. It's the moment you stop needing them to choose you. The moment you understand that love built on chasing isn't love, it's fear. People who avoid closeness don't fall in love with those who chase them. They are drawn to those who stand firm in their own value. Because for someone who spent their life running from emotional confusion, calm confidence feels like a safe place. When you finally stop chasing, something inside you changes completely. You're no longer trying to prove your worth or seeking constant reassurance. You're just living it. You're saying silently, I'll be fine whether you stay or not. And that quiet truth speaks louder than anything you could ever say. It's the feeling of emotional independence. It's the silent message the person who avoids closeness secretly needs to hear but doesn't know how to ask for. The truth is, the person who avoids closeness doesn't consciously want to hurt you. They're not pulling away to punish you or play games. What they are really doing is trying to protect themselves from a level of emotional closeness that feels too heavy to handle. They learned a long time ago that getting too close often means losing control. So, keeping distance became their way to stay safe. But here is where everything starts to shift. When you stop reacting to their withdrawal, when your calmness no longer depends on what they do or say, you change the whole emotional situation. Because for someone who avoids closeness, control is everything. They manage closeness, timing, and emotion because they have never trusted love to be stable. Yet when you stay centered, when you don't get caught up in their emotional detachment, something strong happens. You become the peace they've never experienced before. You're no longer part of the confusion that runs their world. And that's when curiosity starts to replace fear. Think about it. People are attracted to what they can't easily manage. Your calmness becomes the one thing they can't guess or influence. That stability, that quiet peace, becomes magnetic, because for the person who avoids closeness, peace feels unfamiliar. And people are drawn to what feels new but safe at the same time. Without saying a word, you're showing them that love doesn't have to mean losing themselves. You're showing a new kind of connection, steady, grounded, and free from control. This is where love gains real depth. Real love isn't relying on someone else. It's two complete people choosing each other, not two people clinging out of fear. And when you truly believe the idea of I'll be okay without you, you're not rejecting the person who avoids closeness. You're respecting the truth of love itself. Because love that demands is not love. It's attachment. Real love allows. It gives space. It stays strong even when things are uncertain. That's freedom. And the person who avoids closeness feels that energy. They notice when you stop explaining yourself. They notice when you stop needing their approval. They notice when your peace no longer depends on how they act. That's when they start seeing you differently, not as someone pursuing them, but as someone who understands them on a deeper level. And that's powerful because the greatest fear of someone who avoids closeness is being overwhelmed by someone else's feelings. When you show them you can love without losing yourself, you become the safest person they have ever known. It's strange, isn't it? What pulls the person who avoids closeness back isn't your pursuit. It's your peace. It's your choice to stop chasing, stop begging, stop trying to perform just to be seen. That's what moves them in a good way. Because deep down, they don't want to be in charge forever. They want to rest, They want to feel safe enough to open up without losing who they are. Your calm confidence gives them that safety. Psychologically, this change is profound. When you stop depending on their approval, you move from a worried nervous system to a calm one. You shift from emotional reaction to emotional control. And when your nervous system calms down, theirs naturally starts to match it. That's what experts call co-regulation. When one person's calmness helps the other feel safe enough to relax their guard, you literally teach the person who avoids closeness how to feel safe in love, not through words, but through your energy. That's the real power of emotional stability. You're no longer chasing reactions. You're leading with quiet certainty. You're saying through your energy, I choose peace over panic. And that energy speaks louder than any words ever could. It builds respect. And deep down, respect is what every person who avoids closeness desires most. They want to feel that the person beside them isn't depending on them for emotional survival. That's what earns their trust. That's what opens their heart. The truth is, people who avoid closeness don't want someone who disappears every time they pull away. They want someone who stays steady, someone who doesn't fall apart when they need space, someone whose value isn't tied to closeness but to presence. That's what makes you unforgettable. That's what makes you stand out in a world full of neediness and noise. And here's the real point. You don't do this to get them back. You do it because you've grown, because now you understand that peace is stronger than pursuit, and self-worth speaks louder than begging for attention. Whether they come back or not is no longer the question. The real win is that you've learned to stand firm in your own emotional strength. When you reach that kind of self-respect, you stop performing for love. You stop trying to earn what should be freely given. You stop chasing people who mistake peace for boredom and love for control. And when that happens, everything in your relationships changes because you have changed. So if you're wondering what the person who avoids closeness secretly needs to hear once you stop chasing, it's this: I care about you, but I'll be okay without you. That truth sets both of you free. Because love isn't proven through chasing, it's proven through peace. There's a quiet moment of deep understanding that comes when you realize this truth. Love isn't a cage, it's a choice. And for the person who avoids closeness, that realization doesn't come easily. Their whole experience with love has been shaped by fear. Fear of losing control, fear of being used up, fear of repeating the confusion that closeness once brought. To them, love has never felt like freedom. It's felt like being kept in. But when you stop chasing, stop explaining, stop proving your worth, something wonderful happens. You change what love means for them. Your calmness, your quietness, your emotional steadiness all start to send a new message. I'm not here to trap you. I'm here to choose you freely, and you can choose me freely too. That's when everything changes. Because for the first time, love starts to feel safe. People who avoid closeness don't respond to pressure. They respond to peace. They don't open up when you demand closeness. They open up when they feel safe enough to know the connection won't cost them their sense of self. And that's exactly what your stillness shows them. It teaches that love doesn't have to mean control or talking someone into something. It can exist in space, real, alive, but not suffocating. Think about that. How many times have you held on so tightly that you lost your peace in the process? How many times have you mistaken intense feelings for real closeness? The person who avoids closeness teaches you something important, not through words, but through experience. That real connection only exists when both people feel free enough to stay by choice, not fear. That's the contradiction. The tighter you hold on, the more they get away. But the moment you let go, not from anger but from trust, you create space for love to breathe. And that's what people who avoid closeness desire deep inside. They want to know they can love without being controlled. They want to know they can stay and still feel like themselves. This touches on the human need for independence. Everyone needs to feel they have control over their own life. When you stop trying to control how the relationship goes, you give both of you that freedom back. You let them choose, and at the same time, you take back your own power. That's when love becomes balanced again. What many people don't see is that people who avoid closeness don't actually desire distance. They desire freedom within connection. They want to feel that they can love without losing themselves in the process. When your energy moves from control to calm confidence, you show them love doesn't mean losing independence. It means sharing it. That's what draws them back. Not your tears, not your messages, not your desire, but your peace. Your calm lack of attachment becomes proof that you're not trying to own them, only to understand them. You're no longer saying, I need you. You're saying, I see you. And that recognition changes everything because it speaks to something deeper than attraction. It speaks to trust. In terms of deeper meaning, love without freedom becomes ownership, but love with freedom becomes true connection. And that's the kind of love that lasts. When you stop defining love through control, you give both people room to be fully present. You stop pretending, you stop trying to manipulate outcomes just to feel safe. Instead, you build a connection based on respect. And respect is where real intimacy starts to grow. That's why the most powerful thing you can ever say to someone who avoids closeness is, you can go and I'll still wish you peace. Because that's not weakness. It's strength. It shows a kind of love that doesn't need to hold someone tight to feel secure. It says, I trust you to make your own choices, and I trust myself to be okay no matter what you decide. That's emotional maturity. That's growth. You're not walking away from them. You're allowing them to experience real love. Love without control, without fear, without manipulation. And that's when something amazing happens. The moment they realize you never tried to own them is the moment they start to miss you, because they finally see your love never took away their freedom. It gave them peace. In that calm space, they begin to think. They remember that your love didn't demand, didn't chase, didn't beg. It simply existed. And that kind of love stays with a person long after everything else disappears. It remains because it was real. When you understand that love is a choice and not a cage, you stop fighting for control. You stop playing emotional games. You begin to stand in the truth. You realize the strongest love doesn't cling, it allows, because freedom doesn't ruin love, it defines it. So the next time your heart wants to chase, explain, or prove something, stop. Remember this. You're not here to talk anyone into staying. You're here to become someone peaceful enough to let them go if they must. That's real strength. That's real love. And when love is based on freedom, it doesn't have to be chased. It naturally returns, because in the end, the love meant for you will never need control. It will choose you willingly, completely, and without fear.